Hello and welcome to the Gratitude and Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Sara, and I am so happy you found your way here. Most of you probably know me as an actor, but what you might not know is I have been on the most transformative journey these last few years. And I've created this podcast to share the discoveries I've had and things I've learned and continue to learn about this wonderful journey we all call life and how to attain joy, peace, and ultimately freedom. Because I think that's what we're all striving for at the end of the day. I'm here to share some tools that can change your life, hone your mental discipline, and empower you to step into the highest version of who you want to be. I'm going to share my own journey of how I got here, but please do not live from my experience. My intention is for you to live from and create your own experience. Take what works, leave what doesn't. There is no right or wrong here. Just do you. Just be you. Okay? Alrighty, let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode. I want to dive in today with a topic that I have learned is one of the greatest forms of self-love, and that's mental discipline. I want to talk about my journey and understanding of mental discipline and what it is. Honestly, I don't think I can put mental discipline into one episode. It has to do with everything I've talked about so far, and it will be laced into everything that I talk about going forward because life, in a way, is about mental discipline. At the end of my summer of sadness, one thing that hit me so hard was the realization that I wasn't good at keeping promises with other people. And that's because I wasn't good at keeping promises with myself. I think a lot of people hear mental discipline and they immediately think the gym, or healthy eating, or some kind of physical goal or accomplishment. That was me, at least. I grew up a ballerina, so I thought I understood mental discipline. And I definitely did, don't get me wrong, but mainly on the physical plane, like with pushing past physical discomfort. And that totally is mental discipline. But I wasn't aware that mental discipline is most needed and in effect when it came to the inner work. And that is where mine was super weak. The realization that I was breaking promises to other people and I was breaking promises to myself made me check in with my integrity and what integrity meant to me. And I realized that mental discipline and integrity are completely tied together. When I used to hear the word integrity, I would think, yeah, promises you keep with other people. Yes, and that is totally part of it. But it's the integrity we have with ourselves that I want to focus on today. Because integrity with ourselves reflects how much love we have for ourselves. I think we've all felt the disappointment when we let ourselves down. It is a crappy feeling. And here's the thing. Every single time that I did let myself down, I weakened my mental discipline muscle. And mental discipline is the key to achieving any goal, no matter how big or small, whether it's in the outside world or the inside world, whether it is striving toward a career goal or learning to be less reactive with the people you love. That was a big one for me, and I'm still working on it, and I'm still clocking it. Whether it is a gym goal or a soul goal, everything came down to my mental discipline. How easily do you let yourself get distracted? Ask yourself this. I did, and I was very humbled by the awareness and the realization. How easily I get distracted by my phone, by the stimuli around me, by my senses. How many times do you suddenly want to reach for a snack when you know it's time to sit down and write a report or an assignment? This was me with memorizing a script. It seems so small, but it was so big. Every time I had to sit down and memorize, I would immediately start going to do other things on my to-do list. The laundry, tidying up. I would immediately start snacking, all these little distractions. How easily do your senses betray you? I remember a time I cut out sugar, and then I would walk by Cinnabon, and the smell was so overpowering, and I would cave. Wild, right? It doesn't help that we live in a world where stimuli surround us, distractions surround us. We see this in full effect every February. How many people commit to something January 1st, and by the beginning or mid-February, they've moved on? And look, no judgment here. I've been there so many times with so many different goals year after year. But these were the things I started getting tired of doing. These were the promises I started getting tired of breaking. There's a quote that I love. It has only ever been you versus you. It's never been you versus anyone else. Because it is. It is us versus our mind, us versus our body. It always has been, and it always humbly will be. We are the only thing in the way of doing what we want to do, of accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So I want to talk about some actual physical day-to-day tools that helped me and continue to actively help me hone my mental discipline. Because training mental discipline is like training any other muscle in your body. It takes repetition, it takes commitment, and it takes time. This is where routine is important. Routine builds habits. Habits build personality and lifestyle traits. It takes 21 days for something to become a habit and 90 days for it to become a lifestyle trait. 90 days! Yes, routine can become restrictive down the road in its own way, but only after a habit has firmly established itself and turned into a lifestyle trait. That was the catch for me, right? I started realizing if I wanted to quit something before the 2-month mark, 3-month mark, then it wasn't the routine being a negative impact on my day-to-day life. It wasn't the routine turning into control. It was me wanting to quit on it. There's a difference, right? So for me, I learned it's got to be that 90 days. If I really want to implement a change, I have to commit to it for 90 days. Anything before that is a distraction. You won't see results at a gym without routine. You just won't. You can't show up once every 2 weeks and expect the same results as going every other day. So I'm going to start with one of the simplest exercises. Okay, it's going to seem so basic. It really is, but hear me out. Because it started rewiring my mind to build that muscle. Say out loud the thing you're doing. This is a great and easy way to train your integrity with yourself. It might sound silly, but it actually rewires your brain to know it will do what it sets out to do. So, side note, I'm in a really cool place right now where I'm studying two seemingly completely different, let's say, topics. I'm studying yoga in the history and philosophy behind it, and I'm super into neuroplasticity. And do you know what's super awesome? The spiritual and the scientific completely line up, and they both explore and explain how malleable your brain is. It is extremely malleable. It really is. I mean, go back to the Cinnabon example. Look how malleable it is. It gets imprinted with the things around you so easily. I encourage you to start clocking when and how that happens for you, because that awareness was so fascinating for me. And that awareness now helps me clock when I'm getting distracted from doing what I set out to do. The brain is a muscle after all. And so if the muscle only knows, oh, I say I will do this, but I don't, then it needs to be retrained. So I would start with a to-do list. And as I did the things on it, I would say them out loud. I'm taking out the trash. I'm doing the laundry. I'm making my bed. I'm cooking a clean, healthy meal. I'm going to the gym. I'm emailing the contacts. I'm designing the website. I'm meditating. I'm focusing on what I resent. I'm focusing on what I love, whatnot. You'd be surprised how these little things can add up. And then your integrity starts adding up with yourself in your mind because you begin keeping promises. Even if they're small, even if they're little, they're still promises that you set out to do. Next, start small. A lot of the times my mental discipline swayed because I was trying to do too much too fast or too many things at once. I would overpromise. I know I said we're focusing on integrity with ourselves, but overpromising is also an issue in maintaining integrity with other people. This was really big for me, because my people pleaser tendencies were so major. But by honoring my people pleaser, I was betraying myself. and I didn't know how to balance it. This is where mental discipline came in. Back to overpromising to myself. I ended up getting so overwhelmed and sometimes even paralyzed with procrastination or indecision because there were suddenly so many things or options in front of me, and I didn't know which way to go. So I learned to start small and build, especially when it comes to the personal development work. I find when I'm loading on the to-do list of myself, of the things I want to work on, I was actually looking at it from a perspective of trying to fix parts of me. And that's my perfectionism sneaking in. So, for example, I want to go to the gym 4 times a week. I want to intermittent fast. I want to eat healthy dinners every night. I want to meditate. I want to do breath work. Oh, and also I want to be less reactive with other people and stop proving myself in every room that I walk into. And I want to visualize my dream home and my dream career every single day. Okay, amazing. Great goals, Sarah. Totally. Love it. How about for the first month, we just work on showing up to the gym 4 times a week? And maybe building an awareness of when you're in the need to prove yourself. Month 2, we lace in basic meditation. Month 3, we introduce breath work, etc., etc. Desiring all of those things isn't bad at all. It is great. But start with promises you know you can actually keep with yourself. The accomplishment I feel from doing all of these things only for 1 week isn't worth the feeling of disappointment when I'm doing none of them on week 3. So maybe choose one thing to work on for each plane: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. Or maybe even just one plane at a time and go from there. Your life to-do list is long enough. If your self-development to-do list is too long, realistically, it's gonna end up on the back burner. And here's the thing. When our personal development goes on the back burner, our life to-do list becomes a lot longer and a lot harder. I also got caught up in wanting it all now, and I didn't acknowledge and accept the fact that any kind of rewiring or implementing change takes time. In hindsight, when I actually fully surrendered to doing the work on myself, when I really got into the nitty-gritty details of what I didn't like and what I wanted to work on and who I wanted to be, I can see, sitting where I am now, that it all took time. And it was all one step after another. It was first deciding to make the change, like canceling my own wedding and moving out on my own. Then it was realizing why I didn't like myself. Then it was grieving and mourning that. Then it was working on one thing at a time, building awareness of my triggers, of parts of myself that I didn't like, building awareness of when and why my people pleaser was showing up the most. Then it was months of just being conscious of the situations that brought those things up. Then it was months of building the courage to pause before reacting in a moment. Then it was weeks of slowly speaking my truth calmly and lovingly in those moments, etc. And that's only one thing that I'm working on, let alone all the other things, let alone the life to-do list, right? This isn't a race. Again, it's only you versus you. We live in a world where I was and am guilty of this. We live in a world where instant gratification is an addiction, and it is readily accessible to us. So I lost one of the most important traits: patience. Patience and mental discipline also go hand in hand. If you've noticed, everything I'm saying has to do with patience. That's why we usually start out super motivated on something, but by week 3 or 4, that motivation is waning. Instant gratification versus patience, a massive theme in my life. And I think in the lives of many people. Which brings me to the most important thing in mental discipline, but also in life: understanding why you want what you want. This is huge. What is motivating this change? Here's the thing. Sometimes we want things. Let's just say getting in shape as an example, because I know I've been there so many times, and I think a lot of people have. We want to get in shape. We want to tone up, lose weight, build muscle, gain weight, whatever it is. Great. Again, that is an amazing goal. I'm here for it. That is an important part of life, taking care of your body. But why? What is your why behind wanting it? Honestly, for me, I laced this goal into some kind of punishment for so many years. I wanted this goal so that I would look better or more attractive to other people, so that I was desirable to other people, because I hated what I saw in the mirror. I locked onto the parts of my body that would jiggle and that I didn't like and that I so desperately wanted to get rid of. I find that when my goal's why is based in the outside world, when it's based in my ego, the mental discipline is harder to train. Again, don't get me wrong, wanting to get in shape to look good is a great goal, but the longevity behind it is much more sustainable and healthy if you're actually doing it for you from a loving place. If you're doing it to be healthy, if you're doing it to celebrate your body instead of punishing it. By doing it from a place of punishment, real talks, I also dove in to years of severe body dysmorphia because I was only focusing on the parts of my body that I didn't like. And so my actual perception of what my body looked like was skewed. And I didn't even realize it for years. I love going to the gym now. And I'm able to push my physical comfort zone so much more and so much harder because I celebrate what my body is physically capable of doing. Whereas before I was punishing myself, almost to a point of injury, out of that resentment. Mental discipline is easier to hone if what is driving you is positive, is loving, is joyful, instead of some kind of resentment of where you are now. And keeping yourself motivated is key. Set yourself up for success. Knowing your why is number one. It feels good. It drives you. But inevitably, there will be days where doing what you set out to do will not feel good. And no matter what the driving force is behind it, you just won't want to do it. This was a really big thing for me. And then I heard on a podcast something that I currently and always have written on my whiteboard, and I look at it every single day. How will it feel to have done it? In the moment, it might feel crappy. But how will it feel when you finish that workout, when you finish that course, when you get the certification or hit that minute marker on the treadmill? This became a really powerful tool for me because it took me out of the present moment if the present moment was and it pushed me. It motivated me. I don't think you're setting yourself up to fail if you prepare for these days ahead of time. I'm not saying it can't always be joyful and easy, but I learned not to let my perfectionism or my perfect expectations cloud my vision either, because life trips us up sometimes. It just does. It's important for me to prepare myself with the tools I need to get through those moments of temptation, of quote unquote weakness. That is how I started to imprint and show my mind that I have control over it, right? So we start with these, they're not basic, they're actually very, very complex and elaborate, but starting on it with the small to-do list things eventually transferred over into showing my mind I have control over it when things got really hard. So keep yourself motivated with whatever works for you. Vision boards, sticky notes around your house with inspiring quotes, whatever it is. This is why your why is so important. If it's rooted in joy and love for yourself, these remindings will infuse you with that feeling. And that feeling is everything because we like to feel good, don't we? So unapologetically set yourself up to stay in that feeling of good. Celebrate all the little wins as they come. This was huge for me in honing my mental discipline. Celebrate showing up at the gym every time you walk in or finish that workout, or both. This feeling will train your mind to know accomplishment if you're like me and it didn't. So saturate yourself with it. Celebrate every time you realize you reacted to someone how you didn't want to. That is how you will actually learn from it. At the beginning of my meditation journey, I learned to celebrate the timer going off, even when it was only 5 minutes, because I did something, no matter how small it seemed, that I couldn't do the week before. That too is rewiring and training your muscle memory. It is so easy to get hard and punish yourself. It is. And it's hard to motivate yourself from a place of punishment. Again, brain, super malleable. My brain mainly only knew punishment, and it only knew disappointment of not keeping these promises. So celebrating the wins, step by step, no matter how small they seem, taught it to know accomplishment instead. Speaking of punishment, I learned I required mental discipline to know when I needed to rest. Life, especially in North America, is very go, go, go. And for me, it required mental discipline to actually shut it off, to turn the phone on silent, to mute the email notifications, to say no to a night out with friends so I could rest. My mental discipline is weakest when I am overtired, when I'm exhausted, when I'm beat. This is when I break those promises to myself the most. This is when I reach for the comfort food, right? I think we can all relate to that. So I learned that I needed to train myself to rest. For me, that meant actually scheduling it in, like putting it into my calendar. Now, everyone rests and decompresses differently. Legit. I had to learn that too. It wasn't just my way or the highway, right? Some people find decompressing in a night out with friends, with their community, with their peeps, and in socialization, in laughter. Others, like me, decompress in the quiet, in the stillness, a book in hand, my feet up somewhere, or a bubble bath. But I really encourage you to build that mental discipline for rest, however it works for you. It is just as important as working towards your goals. When you physically train at the gym, let's look at that. The rest days are just as important so that the muscles can actually rebuild. The actual workout is breaking down the muscle. It is on the rest days with good nutrition, with protein, with sleep, with water intake, that the muscles actually repair themselves and then get stronger. That being said, there may be times where a day of rest isn't in the cards for a week or two. Life comes at us. And the biggest thing I've learned to acknowledge and to honor is there are seasons of rest and seasons of work. And those seasons may last for weeks. I am in this right now as I'm recording this podcast. My next day off, my day of rest, isn't until the end of next week. I've got a bunch of different projects on the go that are all ramping up simultaneously across multiple different industries. I've got a photo shoot coming up in a few days. And on top of it, I'm packing up my life to move across the country for 4 months. Mental discipline is key in these moments. And for me, this is where I've discovered gratitude is my saving grace. I am a wildly beautiful, emotional being. And when I get overtired, the emotions really fight to take over. And I used to be so prone to spiraling in these moments. But I find if I can hold on to the gratitude at these times, if I can use my mental discipline in the form of my gratitude in and for these moments, it makes them easier. And what do I mean by that? I mean finding gratitude for how busy I am and how blessed that is from a perspective. Gratitude for every meeting and Zoom call I'm taking and what these things are and what they will bring me, what I'm working toward with them. Gratitude for the excitement of a move, even when my condo looks like a tornado hit it for an entire week, and that really gets to me. I'm somebody who really does like organization and things being in their place. But my why is also so important here, right? Why am I spending hours of this wild week doing this podcast? My why behind it is so vital to my being, and my why behind it is so full of love that even through the work, even through the grind, even through the exhaustion, I enjoy it. And I'm able to have such genuine and immense gratitude for it. And gratitude in these wild weeks anchors me because gratitude drops me into the present moment. So the overwhelmed feeling starts to dissipate when I can drop into the now. Being present also makes me so much more productive, especially at these times. This is what I mean by mental discipline in every way, right? Mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. Having the mental discipline to stay present in chaos makes me so much more productive because I set out my list of things I need to do and then I focus on every single one of them as they come, versus looking at it all from a bird's eye perspective and being like, oh my God, how do I get through all of this? Gratitude also offers rest through presence, because when you're present, you are living in the moment and you're focusing on just the one task you're doing. So your brain kind of gets to shut off. So if I'm driving and running errands, I use that drive to rest and reset my brain. I focus on the things in front of me. Sometimes I just focus on my breath and I give my brain a moment of reprieve, right? This is all mental discipline to me. And here's another big thing that helped me. I stopped actively putting myself in positions where I was super tempted to break the promises to myself. This also went back to my why. If your why is strong enough, your priorities are clear. So if you're working on healthy eating, don't go to RibFest. Just don't do it. If you're working on changing something about yourself, it is a muscle that you're building, which means the muscle is not as strong at the beginning. You will be working enough on building it. You'll naturally have days of challenge if you're trying to change, just by implementing the change itself. So don't go and force yourself to require even more mental discipline the first week you're doing this. Building trust and integrity with yourself, keeping those promises to yourself, matter more in the long run than missing out on RibFest. Now, if you're past the 90 days or the 6 months, whatever it takes you, and you know you won't break your promise, then absolutely go. But you need to learn to be honest with yourself. That is the integrity, right? You need to weigh what is genuinely more important to you in the long run, not in the moment of instant gratification. We've been talking about the physical plane, but let me also give you an example of the mental plane. I think I can resonate with this one. I think everyone can resonate with this one. If you know you're going to text that person you don't want to text when you drink, don't drink. Even if that glass of wine might feel really good in the moment, don't put yourself in that position if that is the focus of what you're trying to work on in yourself. Let the love you have for yourself be greater than the instant gratification. Or another example for me, if you know that there's one person that always triggers you and you start saying mean things to them and you're working on being less reactive, don't go hang out and talk with that person until you feel like you can hold your ground. Establish boundaries. This was huge for me. Confession here. I used to scoff at the word boundaries. I thought it was such a therapy word. Man, boundaries have become vital to me. Saying no has become vital. I used to be so scared. I used to be so scared to say no to people. But that is when the overpromising came in, right? Saying no to others is a muscle that just did not exist for me. And to build it, the only way to build it, I had to do it. Saying no to friends, to family, to business partners, to lovers. Saying no is so powerful. It may feel crappy in the moment. It sucked at first. It still does sometimes. But as I started to develop that muscle, it got easier. I can say that. I can say no now whenever I need to because, again, what is my why? What are my priorities? Mental discipline is also doing all of that. That is building mental discipline and integrity. It is not just about the gym and healthy eating and meditation and vision boards. By doing those things, by setting up boundaries, you help yourself do the day-to-day things. And it is the day-to-day things that are just as important because they are the foundation of your ability to do the big things. The thing about working on mental discipline like this is you start uncovering why you aren't keeping the integrity with yourself. You start uncovering some thorns. I started learning why I couldn't say no. So I realized I was breaking promises to myself, right? And in that, I learned that I was constantly putting myself in positions where it was between breaking a promise to somebody else or breaking a promise to me. And I would always choose breaking the ones to myself. And that showed me what kind of relationship I had with myself and why I would prioritize everyone else's happiness over my own. Everything in your life is an opportunity to learn something about yourself, if you will accept it. This is no different. I learned what my triggers and what my thorns were in these moments of discomfort. That is the beauty. That is the gift of mental discipline. And so these are some of the tools I started implementing to hone that muscle. There are many more. There are so many. Mental discipline isn't just a muscle you train and then it's suddenly there and you never have to worry about it again. It is always something that is getting worked out and worked on. And I think that's great because it keeps making me a more integral person with myself and with others. It keeps me honest. And so there's still so many tools I want to talk about. And I'm going to mention a few now. I'm actually going to dive into an episode about each of them because they were my next steps, not only in building the awareness, not only in doing the work, but also learning to hone this mental discipline on a day-to-day in different ways. But they are meditation, breath work, exercise, yoga, cold plunges. These things solidified my mental discipline and continue to. I've learned when I can master mental discipline on the physical plane, it empowers my mental discipline for the actual goals I want to achieve in the material world. What I mean by that is, simply, if I can accomplish 2 to 5 minutes of immersing my body in freezing cold water, I can accomplish the risk of emailing that person or speaking my truth. For me, mastering physical discomfort gives me freedom in other moments of discomfort in my life. And now I can sit here and tell you genuinely, I'm at a point through all this work where I can find gratitude in the actual moment of discomfort, whether it be physical, mental, emotional. Gratitude showed me so purely how to accept discomfort, and it showed me that mental discipline truly is a great form of self-love. Because when that meditation timer goes off, that feeling of accomplishment for it fills me, even if it is only 4 or 5 minutes. This is why I say celebrate all the wins, no matter how small, when you're actively focusing on honing mental discipline. Gratitude for those wins infuses you with joy. And any muscle is easier to build when you're joyful, right? Be grateful for the small steps you accomplish. Be grateful for taking the chance on yourself to implement something new, to break away from your old patterning. Be grateful even on the days when you don't want to do it. Again, this is also why your why is so important. It's hard to be grateful if it's based in punishment. There will be moments of discomfort. There just will be. There should be, in a way, right? That means you're learning to push past your current comfort zone. And I'm not saying don't have that driving, motivating voice in your head to get your laces tied up and step up to the squat cage, or to have that tough conversation with a loved one to set up a boundary, or to say the thing that is hardest to say to a friend. Gratitude isn't just being soft and open-hearted. Gratitude is strong. It is powerful. It is resilient. I go back to that saying, how will it feel to have done it? It would feel grateful. You would feel good. You would feel grateful for showing up for yourself in whatever way you did. So don't skip over the gratitude. That's what I'm saying here. It's actually like the rest days. You honor your progress by feeling genuine gratitude for yourself for doing it. Gratitude keeps the motivation going. It is the best fuel I know. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up with our gratitude prompt today, but I just want to say one last time. Having integrity with yourself is such an important thing. Keep your promises to yourself. You, above anyone else in this world, deserves your own unconditional love and your own integrity. And hopefully, these tools can help you build that. And so, our end gratitude prompt today. Can you think of a time where you accomplished something that you set out to do? It could be anything, big or small. Take a moment to think of something recently. Sink into the feeling of that accomplishment. And can you tap into the feeling of gratitude for it? Can you say thank you to yourself for honoring your mental discipline in that moment, for achieving what you said you would do? Deep breath in and release with gratitude. Thank you so much for tuning in again today. And if you're new, welcome. Keep at it. Keep motivating yourself. Keep that muscle sharp. Okay. Much love, and bye for now. Thanks so much for checking out today's episode. If you resonated with what you heard, hit that subscribe button and maybe send it to someone who you think might need to hear today's message. If you want to stay up to date and connect with us on the socials, our Instagram handle is @GratitudeGrowthPodcast. Until next time, stay grateful and keep growing.